In this part 2 of the muscle lecture, I would like you to be able to define slow and fast twitch fibers, fibromyalgia, muscular dystrophy, and anabolic steroid. Be able to compare slow and fast twitch muscles, including how to train them. List and describe muscle disorders, and be able to contrast cardiac and smooth muscles with skeletal muscles. A note, this last objective will tie in to other topics. In class, we will be doing an activity. You can feel free to try this on your own. There are multiple sources of muscle energy. We have already covered how oxidative phosphorylation in the mitochondria produces a large amount of ATP, and you can expect that oxygenation of muscles is going to cause a lot of ATP to be produced in the mitochondria of muscles, and you can expect that muscles have a lot of mitochondria. These expectations would be right. You can also think about how lactic acid buildup in the muscle is due to a lack of oxygen, because no oxygen equals no oxidative phosphorylation, and also would mean that there's an insufficient NAD+, thus leading glycolysis to go down fermentation and lactic acid buildup. This is going to be in the absence of oxygen. But what other forms are there? Well, there's stored ATP, of course, which is generally stored only in small quantities, giving about 10 seconds worth of energy. It's the only direct energy use source and must be replenished. Then there's stored creatine phosphate. You may have seen creatine if you were doing the in-class activity. And this will give about 3 to 5 times the amount of stored ATP, giving about 30 seconds of usage, which is good for a quick round of lifting. Because creatine phosphate is converted very quickly to ATP. So for a 30-second rep of lifting, use creatine. Stored glycogen. This is variable. Some muscles store large quantities, others do not. And this is primarily used during heavy exercise within the first 3 to 5 minutes. And this depends on whether oxygen is available, because glucose through glycolysis, the citric acid cycle, and oxidative phosphorylation requires oxygen for optimal functioning. So glycogen can be used, especially if oxygen is present, and lasts about 3 to 5 minutes. This is followed by aerobic metabolism, which is a steady high yield. Oxygen and nutrients, glucose and fatty acid derived from fat, are constantly supplied via the blood. This is a whole body resource where the blood is going to be taking energy from some places, moving it to the muscles, where it will be used with complete metabolism, one glucose molecule yielding 36 ATP molecules, and fats being put into the citric acid cycle, also yielding a lot of energy. This is your aerobic long-term metabolism, requiring oxygen, requiring blood flow, and requiring an increase in respiration. And this is very different from creatine, which is only going to be about 30 seconds. This can tell you that there are different types of workouts and different ways to optimize for each. And this comes to the different types of endurance that muscles have. So we are looking at different types of fibers when we're looking at different types of endurance. First off, we have fast twitch fibers. They contract more quickly. They have fewer mitochondria. They use anaerobic respiration better. Let's look back here. They will use stored ATP. They will use stored creatine phosphate. And they will use stored glycogen, but may be doing so in the absence of oxygen. So what do you get with these fast twitch fibers? Well, you get a quick burst of energy, which is enhanced by the presence of creatine and will be burning because you do not get enough oxygen. See that man right there? He's feeling the burn of lactic acid buildup because the glycogen is not using oxygen to do the full aerobic metabolism. That's good for fast twitch fibers. What about slow twitch fibers? They contract more slowly. They have more mitochondria, and they use oxygen better. They may even have a higher amount of oxygen-taking myoglobin, which can actually take oxygen away from hemoglobin in the blood and put it into the muscles for a certain amount of storage. These have more mitochondria. They use oxygen better. Let's look at these. A distance runner will burn right through that stored ATP, stored creatine phosphate, and stored glycogen before he's even done with his first half mile. From there on out, it's all aerobic metabolism. Those potatoes that he ate the night before, they're getting burned and getting used for aerobic metabolism. That's aerobic training. You see this guy? He's breathing heavily and he is in his 26th mile. And the percentage of fast twitch and slow twitch fibers are actually inherited, meaning different people and different families will have different levels of fast twitch and slow twitch fibers. Some of you may be the sons and daughters of bodybuilders, probably more fast twitch fibers. Some of you may be the sons and daughters of people who are marathon runners, probably more slow twitch fibers. And this means that your training will be different. For strength training, i.e. training the fast twitch fibers, this is going to be focusing on resistance. A high amount of weight, a small amount of reps. 75% or more of your maximum capacity for a very few reps. Short exercises, high intensity exercises. And their goal here is to bulk up and increase the muscle mass. That's what strength training does. Aerobic training, on the other hand, is talking about increasing the oxygen demand. An aerobic trainer wants to increase the number of mitochondria per cell, wants to increase the amount of myoglobin per cell, wants to increase the vascularization of each muscle, and is going to be doing less than 50% of their maximum capacity for many reps. Long exercise, low intensity exercise, increasing the blood supply and increasing cardiac function because it's about oxygen delivery, not about muscle mass, about oxygen delivery for your aerobic training. Well, let's look at the long term. If you are an adult, greater than 18 years old, you can lose 1/3 to 1/4 of a pound of muscle mass per year. That's a lot of muscle mass, and that's lose. That means that the fibers are dead. That means the fibers aren't going to be coming back. And you can remember too, muscle has benefits. Having muscle mass or having a large amount of muscle compared to fat has its benefits. Muscle is denser than fat. It burns calories even when resting, meaning the basal metabolism of someone who has a lot of muscle is higher. This also means that if the basal metabolism of someone who has a lot of muscle is higher and they are not using this muscle, it's the body's goal to decrease the muscle so that they don't have to burn energy that they don't need to use. Bones are stronger, as you may know from the skeletal muscle lectures. When they're moved, the body is made to be in motion. Heart health improves with exercise. This is in part because pumping muscles actually moves blood. The body is made to be in motion. Exercise can improve the mood of someone directly through just sometimes you gotta run it out. And also indirectly because exercise increases sleep. Both the quality and quantity of sleep is increased by exercise. There's also a whole bunch of things about dopamine in the brain that you can look at through, but basically the body is made to be in motion. Even a workout of 20 minutes a day can markedly increase health. You want to debate me on this one? You can meet me at the gym. I will gladly work out with you at 20 minutes. I mean, like on the track with you. You're not running with me. Massive muscles are not for everyone. So not everyone needs to be a bodybuilder who is going to be absolutely stacked well into their 80s. Marathon running is not for everyone. You don't all need to be Ed, who here is finishing his marathon. He looks like 86 or something, and he's smiling. He's having a great time, and he's beating people behind him. That's not for everyone. But exercise is for everybody. The body is made to be in motion. Unfortunately, things can happen with the muscles that are less than optimal. So let's talk about several muscle disorders. The first muscle disorder we will talk about is fibromyalgia, which is chronic widespread pain and sensitivity to pressure, especially on certain penny-sized areas on the body marked by these potential tender points here. There's also a fatigue problem. This leads to also lack of sleep and can be compounded through lack of sleep. And this will cause and be concomitant with memory problems. Post-traumatic stress disorder is often seen alongside fibromyalgia. The cause of fibromyalgia itself is not currently fully known, at least at the writing of this book and giving of this lecture. So doctors will frequently recommend increasing sleep, reducing stress, eating healthily, and exercise, which are in generally good for you, and that may or may not help you with your fibromyalgia. Muscular dystrophy is another disorder in which the muscle fibers will die. And there are many different types of muscular dystrophy. There is Duchenne muscular dystrophy, which is most common and earliest affecting the individual. Becker muscular dystrophy, which is slower progressing but appears between ages 5 and 15. And limb-girdle muscular dystrophy, with over 30 different forms starting in either adulthood or childhood. There's a lot of different types there. The dead muscle cells are replaced by fat and by connective tissue, and there is no currently known cure for muscular dystrophy. Steroids aren't so much a disorder that may be genetic, like muscular dystrophy, or genetic or unknown, like fibromyalgia. Steroids are something people do to themselves, which can very quickly increase muscle mass. Anabolic steroids, as opposed to catabolic, where catabolic means breaking down, anabolic means building up. And these anabolic steroids build up muscle mass. This can affect testosterone homeostasis. We'll discuss testosterone homeostasis in a later lecture, but adding exogenous, external, steroids, and that means external testosterone, will disrupt this homeostasis. And it can lead to severe depression and can lead to aggression because testosterone is a mood-changing steroid. Yes, testosterone is a steroid and it's produced in your body. But adding extra can change your body and your mind. It also can damage your heart and kidneys. Last little bit of this are to look forward to different types of muscle. In this 2-lecture series, we discussed skeletal muscle, which is controlled consciously by the brain. If you're moving your arm around right now and writing, that is conscious control of skeletal muscles. You're not thinking about your cardiac muscles. They're not controlled directly by the brain. Also, your skeletal muscles are attached to bone. Your cardiac muscles are not. Your cardiac muscles are controlled by pacemaker cells, and they have discs and are found in the heart. The smooth muscle is controlled unconsciously by the nervous system and does have bundles. Let's look at this. Cardiac muscle specifically, it's found only in the heart. Yes, that's what makes it cardiac. It has what are called intercalated discs, which you can see here, and that is between different cells. So the individual cells are connected, and in these intercalated discs, there are gap junctions, which are basically holes between the cells, allowing them to share cytoplasm. This means if one has a change in electrical charge, it will propagate very rapidly from cell to cell through these intercalated discs. There are some cells in the heart called pacemaker cells, and these have a resting potential that is somewhat unstable, causing them to begin contracting spontaneously. This causes the whole heart to contract because they're all sharing the cytoplasm through gap junctions. Smooth muscle has bundles of actin and myosin. They're not striated, they're bundled. And these are attached to cell membrane proteins, causing a different shape of contraction. You can see the relaxed state and the contracted state look very different than how a skeletal muscle decreases in length. Smooth muscle is found around tubes, such as arteries in the digestive tract, and is controlled by a part of your brain and spinal cord called the autonomic nervous system. And this autonomic nervous system will control your flushing of your face, like when you have your blood go to your face, by relaxing the smooth muscle around the arteries that supply your skin in your face. It also controls how much blood goes to your digestive system during the rest and digest response versus the fight or flight response. These are controlled by the autonomic nervous system and will be discussed at a later time. Cardiac muscle and smooth muscle are different types of muscle found in different places for different purposes that we will be looking at in later lectures.